fast travel. These days, it's an expected inclusion in most RPGs. You pull up your map, click where you want to go, and just like that, you're halfway across the world. It's hardly realistic, and it breaks the flow of gameplay, but it does solve a lot of problems for the developer. Open world games are big and complex, and walking for 20 minutes to complete a simple task is rarely fun. As great as huge worlds are, they have some major problems, and this modern style of fast travel is an easy and effective solution. However, there's a growing number of people who are getting sick of how this system can stunt immersion. It isn't one big issue, but a number of small side effects that can take you out of the experience. There's less sense of distance because you can get anywhere instantly. You're constantly interacting with the UI in a way that doesn't play into the world's fantasy. There's less need for long-term planning because you can always go where you need if you forget something. And there's no real need to learn roads and landmarks. On their own, each probably isn't that big of a deal, but when put together, it's hard to deny the impact. This has led some people to reach the conclusion that games would be better off without fast travel at all. Certain players abstain from the practice entirely, and this style of play has been gaining popularity. But I don't think the problem is fast travel itself. It's the sloppy, unrefined system that's being used by most games. The modern standard was popularized by Bethesda in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and was used in all of their subsequent releases, including Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4. All of which were incredibly influential games that pushed this style as the industry standard. In this system, the game fills in a large map that tracks everywhere the player has been. Cities, towns, relics, dungeons, and camps. Each one becomes an icon that can be returned to at a moment's notice, with absolutely zero downside. In-game time will pass, but these games rarely concern themselves with weeks or months. You can ping-pong across the entire continent for a bottle of water if you're willing to sit through the loading screens. Convenience and player ease is valued above all else, and this naturally has a ton of side effects. But not every game is like this, and there are tons of well-thought-out fast travel systems that can mitigate these drawbacks. Some can even enhance the game in interesting ways, adding depth to the very thing that the modern system waters down. Ironically, one of the best fast travel systems was created by Bethesda themselves, just before they switched gears and made the modern system the industry standard. Their 2002 release Morrowind was a masterclass in fast travel design, implementing a large number of nuanced features that all came together into a cohesive whole. So today, I want to dive into the details of Morrowind's fast travel system, and analyze what makes it so incredible. The most common way to get around Vvardenfell is the public transit system. There are 3 different types of public transit that all work roughly the same way. You find the person offering rides and choose between a number of towns they'd be willing to take you to. Each option has a fee associated with it, and generally, the further you want to go, the more you have to pay. The 3 types of public transit are Siltstriders, boats, and mage guides. Siltstriders are large, thick-shelled insects that carry passengers between western and southern cities. Boats are boats. They're the only transit option that exists in the real world unless you know something I don't, and can take you between coastal cities. And then there are the mage guides. These wizards can teleport you between the 5 mage guilds, which are located in major cities. These 3 systems aren't just reskins of the same basic concept either. Each one is its own interconnected network with unique features and limitations. This is a map of the game's public transit, each method shown in a different color. Yellow for Siltstriders, blue for boats, and red for mage guides. Let's go through each one and take a closer look at its intricacies. The Siltstrider network is shown in yellow, and connects cities in the western and southern parts of the world. Some inland cities are only connected to the Siltstrider network. If a town isn't by water and doesn't have a mage's guild, your only option is insect. The reason this system doesn't cover the entire continent is because certain regions are too hazardous for this type of travel. A Siltstrider may be able to skirt the edges of a dangerous region like the Ashlands or Molaga Moor, but crossing is out of the question. This stretch of wasteland cuts the continent in half, keeping striders from serving the east coast. Next we have boats, shown here in blue. Boats can only travel to coastal cities and are therefore unavailable to inland ones. For the most part, boats are more cumbersome than the other two options, but are absolutely essential on the east coast, where there is only one Mages Guild and no Siltstriders. Last we have Mage Guides, who can teleport you between the 5 Mage Guilds, shown here in red. The places this connects are fairly limited, but if you're traveling between one of these 5 cities, this is the most efficient option. Notably, this system connects a number of western cities to the eastern city of Sadath Mora. This is an essential route to know if you want to avoid the long, expensive boat ride around the island. However, if you want to continue to use the Mages Guild, you'll have to stay on their good side. Unlike the Strider and boat services, the Mages Guild is more than just a business. They have no problem cutting you off if they dislike your actions or affiliations. On the flip side, though, their prices become remarkably cheap if you befriend them. The game also includes teleportation spells that can increase your movement options. These aren't available at the start of the game, but are very useful as you progress. The intervention spells teleport you to the nearest shrine, getting you out of danger and back to civilization. Mark tags your current location, and Recall returns you to that spot. This is great for getting back to important locations like a master trainer or a distant dungeon. Teleportation magic helps to smooth out the travel experience, but it doesn't fundamentally alter it. Intervention spells let you hop short distances, but won't get you around the world. They eliminate the return trip, but still force you to walk to dungeons and quest objectives. Mark and Recall might sound more overpowered, but remember, you can only tag one location at a time, so you should be careful before overwriting your previous spot. At the end of the day, the public transit system is still your bread and butter for getting around the world. It doesn't matter how many fancy gadgets and scrolls you have. You're going to be taking a lot of Siltstriders and a lot of boats. Now that we understand how the travel system works, we have to ask ourselves an important question. Does this convoluted mess actually make the game more engaging, or is it just confusing for no reason? Let's return to the list of concerns we had about fast travel, and see how the system addresses each one. As a reminder, here are the issues with a modern system that we want to address. There's less sense of distance because you can get anywhere instantly. You're constantly interacting with the UI in a way that doesn't play into the world's fantasy. There's less need for long-term planning because you can always go where you need if you forget something. And there's no real need to learn roads and landmarks. To start, let's take a look at whether Morrowind's system is able to preserve a sense of distance. Taking a closer look at the map, we can see that each boat and Siltstrider station is only connected to the closest few cities. If you want to get from Sedanin to Balmora, you only need to take one Siltstrider trip. However, if you want to go from Sedanin to Kuhl, which is much further away, it will take you 3. This makes it significantly more cumbersome and expensive to travel across the entire continent, a feeling that's noticeably lacking from Oblivion and Skyrim. But it isn't just the money and number of trips that instills a sense of distance. It's also the knowledge that's required to make a lengthy trip in the first place. The map we're looking at here isn't available anywhere in the game. It's something that was created by fans who learned the routes by taking careful notes. As a new player, you won't know the right trips to take to get from Sedanin to Kuhl until you learn how the cities are connected by the Strider network. This process forces you to learn the layout of the transit system. You won't get far if you don't understand how to get around, and this instills an innate sense of how far things are. Next, let's talk about the UI elements involved in traveling. In most modern games, fast traveling involves pulling up a menu and selecting your destination by clicking an icon. This is certainly effective, but it requires you to step outside of the game's setting, subtly reminding you that this world only exists as a video game. Morrowind, on the other hand, keeps fast travel within the game's dialogue system. Taking a Siltstrider is as simple as talking to the guy running the station and selecting a destination. This is also how residents of the world would go about traveling, simply going up to the person offering rides and having a little chat. It's a minor touch, but by quietly sliding the fast travel menu into the dialogue system, Morrowind keeps you immersed in the world. The transit system does a great job of forcing you to make long-term plans. Throughout the game, you'll get lots of different tasks that require you to travel around the world. Talk to this person in Vivec, visit this bookshop, and raid this dungeon. Some of these may be important enough to warrant a special trip, but many are smaller tasks that are better tackled when you happen to be close by. This incentivizes you to plan your trips around the world, so you don't have to take an excessive number. It's just like in the real world, where we try to do our shopping in large chunks. It doesn't feel very good to drive to the grocery store for just a carton of milk. That's a pretty big excursion for just one item. But if you go to buy food for the week and then hop over to the post office to ship a package, your travel time can be drastically reduced. Likewise, in Morrowind, it's best to plan a number of things to do on your trip to Vivec. Tackling 3 separate quests on one trip is a lot more efficient than going for just one thing, and this forces you to plan out when you are traveling to a certain location. However, this is only important because travel is expensive and time-consuming. If we were able to teleport to the grocery store, we may not put as much time into carefully working out what we need. Likewise, in games with unlimited fast travel, you're more likely to follow a single quest, bouncing around the world using your unrestricted ability to go anywhere at a moment's notice. Last, let's talk about roads and landmarks. One of the things I love about exploring in games is learning how to get from place to place. By the end of the experience, I want to be able to draw the map from memory, and in order to learn a world this well, you have to spend time walking around. Morrowind's public transit system is able to get you to cities and towns, but won't take you everywhere you need to go. Dungeons, forts, camps, and ruins are only accessible on foot, and this forces you to learn the roads. Many quests will ask you to walk somewhere, giving you directions based on landmarks you'll see. After you complete these quests, it's worth remembering the path you walked, because you won't be able to simply fast travel back there. In the modern system, nearly every place you go becomes a fast travel location, so there's not much point in remembering the path. As you can see, Morrowind's fast travel system provides a way to get around that still forces the player to engage with the world on a deeper level. It makes sure that you don't have to walk across the entire continent, but doesn't let you get away from thinking about distance and travel costs, keeping you immersed in the world as you plan your next set of adventures. It sidesteps a lot of the problems that the modern system has created by maintaining drawbacks, and not simply letting the player do whatever they want. It's a great system that I think a lot of modern developers could learn from. And for me, well, it's my favorite fast travel system of all time. Thanks for watching.